Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is a wonderful Monday night, and the gang is back together. Feels like forever since we've all been here talking to you, and we are very appreciative of everybody who's taking the moment to join us tonight as we will hopefully answer some questions. Most likely, we'll just add more confusion before it's all said and done.
Pretty much, that's kind of a thing
Yeah.
we do.
That's what makes us endearing, right? Is that at least that's what my wife says.
There we go. This must be. I'm looking for the thing we put between the questions. That's not it.
Oh, the bumpers.
Yeah, the little separation thing. I can't find it. Sometimes I move things around, and then once I move them around, and then they're not here, they're gone. Oh, there it is. It's called. I've scientifically named it. It's called question transition. Ooh, I don't know how I ever came up with that name. That's just confusing as all get out. All right. Hey, we're good. So, guys, I spent some time looking online and finding questions that I thought would be kind of interesting to dig into tonight. So, it's time to kind of jump into that. For those of you wondering, Karen Walker was going to be with me in the first show tonight, but because when we booked this was back. Karen's from Canada. Before when we booked it, there was not an election going to be happening today in Canada, and she is an election judge in Canada. So she is there, and I want to say she said she's there from like 6 a.m. to like 11 tonight. I mean, it's like a long day. I mean, those folks must be extremely dedicated, because as a township person, I have election judges that we kind of oversee, and if they put in a 4-hour day, as far as a kind of a block of time, usually we want them to do like, oh, you're going to do the 4 hours in the morning, or you're going to do the 4 hours in the afternoon type of thing. So
It's the exchange rate.
it must
That's
be
the difference.
It must be. It must be that.
Well,
That's,
Canadian hours are just longer, so they have to be there more.
And how big is her community compared to yours?
there could be that too. I mean, we do have a total of 1,400 or so in the vicinity, but you get down to those who are old enough to vote and different things are probably now in the 400 range, and then
Farm animals.
the ones who will come and vote probably gets you down to like 35 people. It's just how it is, especially if it's an off year. So
Like Green Acres.
yeah, exactly. It's pretty good. All right, guys, let's get to our first question tonight. All right, guys, the first question tonight, somebody was wondering about tips, and I'm guessing that the way they wrote it up was that they were maybe doing more club type or more bar type stuff. So you can look at it from a couple of different perspectives if you've done both. But how do you encourage tips? And I've seen with weddings, it can be dealt with on a contract. Some people have a tip jar. Some people are doing weddings with. If you were wanting to encourage tips, or you had a staff member or a friend who said like, hey, I really want to do this, what would you recommend for them to have some success with that? And Cubbie, I know this is a big area of yours, so you can start us off.
Thanks. It's
You're
really
welcome.
not. I do nothing to encourage the tips except for teach my DJs to do a good job, respond within 24 hours to their clients, be very on focused. I don't put it in the contract. I don't send out emails, even though I do use automatic emails. I don't do anything to talk to the client about giving a tip. I just think if you earn it, you earn it. And especially as a single op, it should be built into your price. You should not expect a tip. They're not traditionally speaking, in the tipping world, you're not supposed to tip the owner. It's just not, they're making the full boat. Um, it's always as the owner, it's always very much appreciative and appreciated. But I don't encourage it for myself at all. I don't know. I still have a tough time asking for it for my guys. Like, hey, if they encourage, if Brian asked me, well, does that include tip? I'm like, no, but if you think they've gone over and above what you expected them to do, I'm sure they'd be really appreciative of it. But I don't do anything to encourage it. Not a tip jar. I've had clients try to tip me to play a song, and I won't do that. I'm like, nope. Couples paid me. Thank you so much. I just don't want to be known as that guy. They always ask him. I always have my hand out, and we charge enough that My people get paid very, very well, and I get paid very, very well. So it's just added bonus.
Thoughts, Dan?
So I'm with Cubbie in a lot of those aspects. I really don't do anything to encourage my couples in a suggestive type of fashion. I feel kind of the way he does, right? Like, if you think you're needing the tip in order to make a decent amount of money, then you need to start to charge more. Like because don't be relying on something that is supposed to in a way be above and beyond for what you do. Yes, we are a service industry, and by definition, you could think that a tip needs to be there. But I just don't think it's something that you need to rely on. Now, with that being said, when I think about the events where I typically do get tips with consistency, it's when I'm working with a wedding planner,
Hmm.
which is kind of funny because those are the instances that I don't do as much as I do without the wedding planner, because a lot of the things, like just the little nuances of the day, they take care of. So I'm actually doing less, but without fail, it seems like when I do work with these wedding vendors, that with these wedding planners rather, that's when I get a tip. So I would say that if you're wanting to do that, try and find a way to work with a couple wedding planners who are typically going to encourage their couples to tip for you. Then then it's a little different. But outside of that, I would say, find a way to figure out, okay, if $100 more is what you're hoping to get out of a tip. I'm just throwing a number out there, then add $100 to your business and forget about the tip that if it comes in. That also makes you look very appreciative, like exactly like Cubbie was saying. Like, if they come up and they're trying to tip me, like, listen, it's taken care of. Tell you what, here's what you can do. They're going to be having a dollar dance later on. Throw that money that you're going to do, put that in there. Or you know what, those bartenders over there, they're working really hard. Like, look how much they're getting drinks tonight. Drop it in their bin. It's weird. I get the weirdest looks from some people when I do that, but I feel it all comes back to me in the end. And I'd rather just kind of do that, because here's the other thing. How many times when they've come up and they've given you money, is it usually for a song that you really don't want to play? Right?
There is
Now you're
that.
taking money, and so now you kind of feel obligated. You have to play it because you took the money. Just saying. Just saying.
So react to this thought. Some people, especially multi, put a line item on the contract. So this is how this add all these things up. This is the total. This is the subtotal. There's a tip amount, and then there's the retainer amount, or however they do it, so that there's an open blank on the contract that basically is inferring a tip. What are your thoughts on that?
I've taken it out of my credit cards. Like my credit card company has the ability for me to put a line for them to be able to put a tip, and I've taken it out so that it doesn't show. I just
Yeah, I've
Again,
seen.
I understand. Go ahead, Gubby. Sorry.
No, no, I'm sorry to interrupt, sir. Go ahead.
I understand from the multi-op standpoint. I get that a little bit, kind of to what Cubby was saying, right? Not tipping the owner, tipping the worker. And I guess I see that. I just I don't know, because it's also one of those things, like I just feel like it's kind of that weird line. Kind of also to the same point, like if I've bet I think I've been asked one time, if I can remember, about a tip. Like listen, we want to give you a tip. How much is customary? And I had to basically be like, listen, whatever you think is awesome. You don't need to do it, but if you want to, it's appreciated, and whatever you feel is good for you. Um, I know some others, they're like, no, this is the percentage that we say. Again, I have a hard time with that, even in just leaving that blank, for them to do that. If they want to slip me a thank you card with some money in, I've even said in the past that I would rather have a mother of the bride come up and give me a hug saying thank you, you made our kid's day, than I would an extra $50. And that's just because in the end, that's going to make me feel better. Yeah, $50 would be nice to have at the end of the day, but um, I don't know. I'd rather have that genuine appreciation than a couple extra bucks.
Excellent, excellent. I've got another question we're going to come at, but I think we're going to put a space in here because this is a related but different topic. So let's jump to that one. Okay, so we were talking tips, but this is kind of somewhat related from the standpoint, and we had this a few years ago, is would you add a surcharge to your event? So let's say you contracted an event for, easy numbers, $1,000, and the travel and such that you were allocating money towards that because the gas price tripled or whatever, all of a sudden things like this can happen. Or maybe it was one of those things that you are now having to, they are like, oh no, we've got to have the high-end microphones. Something is unusual from when you first contracted. Would you add a surcharge to a show to cover some expenses that were not initially there during the time of the booking? Cubbie, what are your thoughts?
I always have to start.
I know. Well, Dan did a double the last time, so you could.
He did. As far as gas, I'm fully transparent at the time of booking that if it's further away, any further away than an hour, we're going to need a gas fee, and I built in travel time for my DJ for pay for that as well, and fully transparent. So they know going into the contract. So for as far as mileage and gas, that's done at the time of booking, and I'm very transparent about that, saying I could work in my own area and not have to go to those expenses, and my
Okay,
people
so
would
now
have to
what
drive.
happens though? We book it in 2025, and then it's a 2027 wedding, and by then, let's say the gas price is like $8 a gallon.
I eat it.
Are you just eating it?
Yeah. I mean, I can't go back to them and go, oh, by the way, you know, they
Okay.
get it. I mean, and I'm sure they understand it. But once it's contracted, I feel like I have to honor that. I mean, I'm asking them to honor it. So for me and my company, and anybody can, that's up to them. But for me and my company, I will honor it because we did take a hit 2 years ago or 3 years, like COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I had some gas mileage and then it jumped up there. And that one year it was just tough because we weren't making anything on it, but it was close to breaking even.
Dan, when it comes to surcharges, gas is certainly one possibility. But what about if you're contracting for the ceremony, and now all of a sudden they're telling you that they need something completely different that you don't have, that you would have to go and invest more money in? Would you pass any of that along to them, or is it just part of business?
I think it depends on what it is that they're entailing, right? If they're suddenly asking for extra equipment, extra something that they feel is necessary to bring in, even to the point of, we're having suddenly we're going to have an 8-piece band that is going to be running through your system, right? Like something along the lines of that, like just being prepared for something out of the ordinary. I feel like if you change the parameters of what's being expected, then we need to renegotiate the contract. But if it's just oh, I decided to add a second speaker to my ceremony system because that's going to make it sound better. Um, that's something I've decided. That doesn't get passed along to the couple, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that's the way I kind of look at it. If you're coming in and throwing some parameters out that's completely different than what we discussed and what we agreed upon, then there is the possibility for that. The one surcharge though that I would say that I've contemplated doing, and it's not really surcharge, it's processing fee, right, with credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gotten into that of passing along the fees, but man, every year I look at the number at the end of the year that I've especially now that I'm running everything or pretty much everything through credit cards. I'm just like, I know it's a write-off and that's the way I use it. But in the same respect, I'm just like, man, it would be nice to not have that, or to be like, listen, you want to write me a check? Write me a check. You want to pay by credit card? It's going to be, we'll split the percentage, something to kind of meet in the middle. But that's probably about the only thing where I've kind of gotten to the point of lately. That would be the closest to a surcharge idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's become more common that you see those in different spots. And just in our small little town, Mayberry here, there's a half a dozen different businesses that will give you a discount for cash.
Mm.
So some of them will be like, oh, it's $10, but if you pay cash, it's $9. And some of them, it's like, it's $10. Oh, you're doing a credit card? Well, then it's $11.
Yeah.
And of course, it's like, well, that second one always sounds, why didn't you just charge me $11 and then say, oh, it's you're using cash, it's now $10. I'd be like, woo, I'm getting a deal, instead of the other way around.
I think where you get away from, I feel like that is a little bit of the sliminess, right? But I think where sometimes you can get away with it a little bit is if it's, the percentage, right? Like if you say like this is the percentage, this is the processing fee. I think it becomes a little bit more of the understood, because people kind of have a working knowledge of the fact that the credit card companies are charging the stores that are using them.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to the people that are then paying. So I think that becomes a little bit of a better vibe. But yeah, if you're wanting to do, the other way, right? Like here it is. If you're going to pay this, so if you're going to, write me or do cash, it's going to be this. I always view, it's funny though. I always view those as like they're trying to circumvent like paying or putting it on the books, right? Like if they're going to lower it, or they're going to get the incentive for cash, is because they'd rather have the cash, because they're not going to record all of it. Whereas the processing fee is a little bit different. I don't know. Let's
Yeah,
tomato.
different ways of looking at it. So, all right, let's jump to our next question. So Daniel in the chat room had a question about. I'll just kind of read. Have you ever done a karaoke wedding party? Anyone? And how did it go? So I want to talk in two different ways. Is Cubbie, have you guys done the engagement parties or the stag and stagette type parties?
No, I think that's a Canadian thing. We don't do that here in the Midwest.
Yes, we do.
We don't.
Northern New York has them too, but we
Yeah,
haven't
and it's not
yet.
something too often. And it was a bigger thing 35, 40 years ago, where people would have, 2 weeks before the wedding, they would have a party where they could generate some money coming in and such, and then they could have that. For those types of events, and I've done a couple of where the night before we've done the bachelor dinner, or not bachelor dinner, the groom's dinner, bachelor dinner. Watching too much reality TV. The groom's dinner. And Cubbie, now you've done groom's dinners.
I've done rehearsals when I officiated. I've done rehearsals and I've stuck around and played music and things. But I don't generally do rehearsals. It's been years. Like I said, it's been a lot of years.
Okay. Yeah, so I've done a couple where they did the rehearsal and then they were having kind of a backyard party. I did not use karaoke because in a situation like that, everyone is too busy talking and hanging out and catching up, and it just didn't do anything. Dan, have you ever had any experience with that side at all?
No, because I just won't do karaoke.
Okay.
They call me about it, I'm like, sign somebody else.
Yeah, no, I get that. And then of course for weddings, this is where, Dan, I want you to riff. Karaoke for a wedding, go.
Find somebody else. Keep in mind, right? Like I can see where with the right crowd, right? Couples need to know their guests, right? And if I've got a couple that looks at their guest list and goes, they're not dancers, we're not dancers, but you know what? We love to go to a bar and we love to sing. That can be an awesome night for a couple and their guests. But that's not me. That's not my brand. And that is not, I've had a couple that's, was like, hey, we wanted to do karaoke. I appreciate that, but that is not, I don't have the equipment. I don't have the know-how.
Okay, what are your thoughts on handing, can we get a microphone so we can sing along?
Yes,
I always
do
tell
do
them,
that.
I'm sorry, if you go out there, you're going to get feedback. Now that I pumped up the music for during dancing, if you go out there with the mic, you're going to get.
Okay, Dan's a killjoy. We've
Yeah, I was ready to say, what a wet blanket. Oh,
I've had two issues that have made me extremely gun shy when it comes to handing over a microphone at a wedding, when it's not been a toast. And one of them actually was a toast because the microphone went crashing to the ground. And that, they should have never had a microphone to begin with, but I knew the gentleman, grown up knowing him, and decided, you know what, I'm going to give this to him, not thinking he would actually then drop it on a tile floor. That's one. And then the other is, just a very, I don't want to say inappropriate because it wasn't necessarily, but it just was very, what was thought to be a good situation was not. Now I will say there was one third example where the bride and groom came up to me and were like, would you please let our uncle sing? He is a professional singer and we would love to have him do this spur of the moment. Yes. Okay. Different story. But half the time they have this mental, image that they're going to be the latest greatest lead singer of some band, and it's never that way.
Cousin
See, John
Bubba.
Cawley agrees with me. I only brought speech mics, not singing mics.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty good.
I if approached prior to booking, do you do karaoke? No, don't have it. Don't, because I don't have karaoke. But in consultations with my bride and groom, just a few weeks ago, my bride knew every song to an Eminem song, right? Knew every word, excuse me, every word to an Eminem song. So I played it and I passed her the mic, and then when I handed it to her, I looked her dead in the eyes, like, "Do not drop this thing." And she rapped the whole thing and was the star of the party, and it made her night.
Mm.
And so I have done situations like I don't have the if she's singing over the top of Eminem and I'm kind of dropping the sound, and I'm not going stems where I'm totally doing a cappella, but she's singing over the top of him. And I've done situations like that, and I literally tell them, like, "Don't drop this mic. You will buy it if it breaks." Um, and they're the star of the party. And it just really it just got really great reviews off stuff like that. But all night long karaoke, no, I can't do that either with Dan. I just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing: did you really need to give her the mic? Could you not have had her be front and center without the mic, dropping the voice, and she would still be able to rap along, and everybody would know whether they could hear her voice 100% or whether they could see her mouth going to the lyrics 100%. They would know it's there, and she would still be the star of the show. You do not need to hand your mic over to make that happen. I know, killjoy. I don't
Lessons from tonight. Dan,
Is no
wet
fun.
blanket.
Dan DNC Entertainment.
No, I this one I got to agree with Cubbie on that. Dan is there have been a couple of times when I've handed over that expensive EV microphone, and the cringe factor as I did that, because the one person I handed to, and I think mine was a bride also a couple of years ago, and I was pretty confident, but as soon as that microphone starts to drift, if somebody else is, that, oh, no, she's singing, and then she's like, and then she's like, oh, you over there, here, you should hold the microphone, and then it can go down, it can go sideways pretty quickly. But that moment when the bride or the groom or whoever, that important person does their little thing, oh my gosh, people talk about that.
Yeah, for me, it's only bride or groom. It's not going to be Uncle Johnny. It's not going to be the maid of honor, because I said, if I do it for you, I've got to do it for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's only the bride. It's going to be that one song. I knew going into it that I was going to drop it, and she was going to sing, and she was, like I said, she was the star of the show. And do I do it every weekend? No, not at all, not at all. But there are certain opportunity times that I'll take advantage of that and make sure she has the star of the show.
So I do have the karaoke. I've been actually doing that in the bars here for the last few months on a regular basis. Shout out to Matt and Eric and the crew there who are doing a weekly KJ show that streams on Sunday nights. They record these on Monday nights. A lot of great information there, and if you want to jump in and kind of watch the recording and give them some questions, you can definitely do that. They've got a Facebook group out there. KJ's reach out to Eric and or the guys there, Matt. They'll get you hooked up, or reach out to me and I'll connect you with the guys. Anyway, the whole process, it's kind of cool and such, but for weddings, the only time I've ever actually done it at a wedding was when we did a backyard wedding. And we knew kind of going in, as Dan was referring to, that they just were not going to be dancers. And this is something that they really wanted to do. So the first 2 or 3 hours, it's like playing background music. And somebody got up and they did the electric slide. This is kind of dating when that happened. And then there's nothing. And then there's a slow dance. Maybe 3 or 4 couples came out and danced. And then there's nothing. And then at about 11:30, then they become singers. And every song they're singing along to everything, whether it's a song that has the words to it or not. If it's just they're singing along to everything. Yeah, the biggest thing that I've done that for weddings is that the microphones that they have are completely disposable type of mics. They're not getting quality microphones because they're going to probably at some point in time, bang it on their heads or bang it off each other's whatever and drop them. So Would I do it? Only in some situations. Would I recommend it? Pretty much never. But if they really, really, really insist, maybe would do it. I wouldn't send my boys to do that one because you've got to have a thick skin. And if any of the karaoke people are with us tonight, they all know what I'm meaning by you got to have thick skin with this kind of stuff, because it is it's a thing. For a party, I would probably maybe be a little warmer to if somebody's like, hey, we want to have an engagement or wedding. They want to do karaoke the night before. I'd be maybe a little more receptive to that, but then there's the reality of the night before, the groom's dinner time frame, and the after of that, is that people are talking so much that they're not wanting to have a microphone in their hand. And if they're finally getting drunk enough to want a microphone in their hand, it's probably getting late enough where they need to get their butts to bed so we can have them the next day. So I would still be I'd rather talk them out of it or be very hesitant. If it's a party 3 weeks in advance, could be a different thing, because it's basically then like a bar show, and you do what you want with that. So,
can I ask a question that's unrelated, but you've used this term a couple times?
Yes.
What's a groom's dinner?
Groom's dinner. So the night before they will have a practice at the church, and then after that there will be a groom's dinner. And they will pretty much everyone who's involved with the wedding party, parents and such, they will immediate family will go, and there's what they call a groom's dinner, and it's just getting together. And
rehearsal dinner is what I've always heard it referred to.
Yeah.
So I've never heard of groom's dinner. Only thing I've heard of, I've heard that the groom's family pays for that one, so that's maybe where that title comes from. But I'd always heard it as rehearsal dinner. And so you kept saying it, and my head keeps thinking like a low-key bachelor party. Like, because it's the night before, it's more of a subdued type of thing. But that's not. So it's rehearsal dinner for those of you that are like me that was like, what?
And it's probably something that's it's been that way. And as times change, we probably should be referring to it as a rehearsal dinner to be more inclusive.
Oh, here's another one. You want to talk about grooms versus rehearsal dinner. I talked about toasts all the time, and they go, "That's the speeches." I'm like, yeah, those are the speeches.
Toast are going to hold up alcohol and cheers at the end. That's what I tell them. That's the difference between a toast and a speech. Are you cheersing or not?
But it's just that younger generation. Like, are those the speeches when you say toast? I'm like, oh yeah.
Good stuff. All right, let's jump to our next question here, guys. So our next question tonight is, how do you handle an intoxicated guest who is hitting on you at a show? We've all been there. We've all had that situation. Cubbie, how did you handle it?
That's really never happened to me, Don, so I'm going to have to defer to both you pretty guys, because it does not happen. So if it does, I'm going to follow your guys' advice, so walk me down that road.
Even in intoxication, you've never been hit on. What's that got to say?
Yeah, that's wow. So we know Dan is a wet blanket, and Cubbie is.
I'm a wet blanket too to hot women.
I guess you're not really a wet. Dan, have you ever had that situation? And if so, how did you handle it?
Play oblivious to it. So
what song is that? Who sings that one? Is that?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm just gonna check and see if it's on one of my favorite albums. Oblivious. It's not on my favorite albums.
No. My wife loves to razz me about this because in general I do tend to be very I don't want to say naive, oblivious, whatever it might happen to be. When we were dating, I was doing a bar. It was like our town was doing Mardi Gras, like these big parties. We tried to make it big, and like every hotel and bar you could think of was doing something. So I was playing for like the one hotel in a banquet area, and I was playing music or whatever, and this girl came in and she was intoxicated. My wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, was sitting in a chair 10 feet away, maybe, but very clearly up there with me, right? The girl was apparently flirting with me. I had no clue what was going on at all. The girl kind of left. She came back, and then she was like kind of hanging out, and she kept looking at me, and then she went over and she goes, "Are you with him?" And she was like, "Yeah." Girl left, never came back. My wife told me about it afterwards, and I was like, she was like, "She was hitting on you." And I said, "What?" So I legitimately a lot of times am oblivious to the fact that those kinds of things happen. But I encourage you, to just first off, if they're intoxicated, there's no good that's going to come of that situation for you or for them. And if somebody is generally flirting with you and you're single, keep in mind you're there as a professional. It's one thing to it's one thing. Hey, you know what? I'd love to continue this conversation. Here's my number. Let's talk. Give me a call tomorrow and we can meet for coffee or something like that. But if they're intoxicated, again, no good is going to happen to that. And chances are one of the two things that's trying to happen is they're intoxicated and nothing should happen, or they're flirting for the purpose of getting something, such as, like, oh, if I flirt with them, they'll play my song. Like there's been those kind of things, and it's like, I'm worth more than that. Just ask me for the song.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to say my eyes look pretty, but they do.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah. So, Cubbie, have you had that? No. Okay.
No.
So this is this scenario that it had.
You're oblivious too.
I have been. Yeah, and Cubbie's actually more oblivious because it happens, Cubbie. It happens.
Yeah.
But this scenario that I've always struggled with is that I'm not a huge fan of that type of connection with the crowd, where it becomes that flirty type thing. It's just I don't enjoy that. I'm not comfortable with it. So my method of handling it that I had come up with is that when they basically are like, it's like, hey, high five and whatever, and be cordial and things. And then once you can feel that there's this moment where it passes from being something that they're just coming up to make a request, and they're going a little farther with their flirting to feel something, feel whatever. And it became, instead of, being friendly and such, it's like, I'm really uncomfortable that you're standing right here and being in my space. And I appreciate your coming up and wanting to hang out with me, but please, you're making me really uncomfortable and I've got a job to do. Thanks. And sometimes it worked. And one time the gal wanted to fight, probably a foot shorter than me. And she was going to kick my butt. And I laughed in her face. I thought she was joking, and she wasn't. So yeah, after the end of the show, she was waiting over, glaring the whole time. And at the end of the show, she was going to wait until I get in the parking lot because she was going to go out and kick my. Yeah. So
Minnesota women are tough.
Yeah, she definitely. That was the. I was wrapping my cords the slowest way, and then 3 hours later, I finally could load out. So that was good. That was good.
And then 2 weeks later, he finally went on a date again with Lori. Who was the girl that was in the corner? That was.
Yeah.
Didn't quite get that analogy.
But yeah, that's been an area that it's a very difficult one. There's, as Dan said, there's not a good way to win, because if they're intoxicated, they've already lost some of their rationale and common sense, and are working in an area that's not that great. When I was in the bar, that would happen a little more often. When I was doing the 4 or 5 nights a week, there were times where I would have to do that and they still weren't there. And the bar manager, he would watch out for the DJ and he'd watch out for his waitresses. And there were a couple of times he went up there and he escorted somebody off my stage because I gave him I'm really uncomfortable with this. Can you please step away? And they didn't. And I think there was one time that there was something that I don't remember what we did. We had a code word or something. We had something that we had to do that we told our staff that if you do this, the bar manager will hear and then he'll come up because he knows there's a problem. And I don't remember what it was at the time because it's been 20 years ago. But there was one time that Mark came up there and escorted a gal off the stage that was not taking no and thank you, but goodbye. But it's a tough area.
But I guess to wrap it up, I think even the younger guys, if they are hitting on you, it's not good. It'll get around if you're doing weddings, if you're sleeping with bridesmaids or aunts or something. And we have a guy in town that's done it a couple times, and it's gonna get out. It's gonna hurt your reputation. So just play everything right. So you can't sleep with anybody on your day job. It's not encouraged. It's not fraternization. So like I said, for me and my people, I tell them no, do not date anybody that you wear at a wedding because it's gonna hurt you.
And we even, when I, with staff, no dancing, no going out. You know, if you're going to lead a line dance, that's one thing, but no slow dancing. Anything to that effect is just going to cause problems. So it's like, and they're like, well, so if they come up and ask, it's like, tell them that it's my rule. As the owner of the company, it's my rule, and that way you can blame it on me. Oh, I'd really like to come out there, but the boss said, and if he catches me, finds out that I was out there, I could get fired. Giving him that out.
So Robin's comment was, "I'm married, doesn't work." In a lot of these situations that we're talking about, no.
Yeah.
Because again, either if they're intoxicated, they're not making rational thoughts, right? And even beyond that, if they're not looking for relationships. That's why I said, if you are single and that type of thing, and you make a connection talking with somebody and it's not an intoxication thing, give them your number and say, listen, let's chat another time. Like, now's not the time for this to go any further than what it is. Let you both have clear heads, meet for coffee the next day or whatever is fine. And something might come of it in the sense, but if that comes about, then it's completely different. It's not in a moment, this situation. It's not from the music. It's not from the alcohol. It's not from, the emotions of the wedding, and all those things that sometimes play into just natural hormones that are in the air. That would be my 2 cents. Like, I because I'm sure there are people that have met their significant other at a wedding that they were DJing, and they're married now, and it's been a great relationship. But I think approaching it and taking it to anywhere during that night is the problem.
Could definitely be a problem. All right, guys, let's jump to our next question. All right, our next question is, are there some gear pieces that we carry as a backup that maybe most DJs wouldn't think of to be carrying with them? And guys, I'll actually start this one out because of doing the karaoke shows and such. I'm carrying not a full backup wireless microphone system, but I am carrying an additional handheld wireless microphone. And yes, I have wired ones too, but the idea behind it basically is I've got two, and if somebody manages to damage one of them, I would rather not be down to one for the night. So I have a second one, and if something happens, which ironically, one of my two on the main unit did go down, all I had to do is basically reprogram the second one, and within 30 seconds, I had the microphone replaced, and it was good to go. So not a full wireless microphone system backup, just the one mic. And for karaoke, I'm using an inexpensive mic. So for $60, I picked up another one on Amazon that we're using. And if somebody eats it and throws it away or whatever, I'm not out a ton of money. So, is there anything that maybe is overlooked that you guys carry as backup in your kits?
I got one, other than cords and backup laptops and things of that nature and microphones like you discussed. For me, it's those power cords for the EVRE3 cords.
I was hoping one of you would mention that, because that was my other one, and it's like, I'm going to go with this microphone. It might be.
Yeah, sometimes they get wrapped up or raveled. The same thing goes with all my hosts, and it's also the same power cord that goes to small Yamaha mixers for ceremony sounds or whatever you're using.
Nice.
Make sure you have backup cords. I buy 5 of them at a time on Amazon, just so I can rotate if something happens. And because those wires are kind of cheaply made in the back, so that's something. You can have all the microphones you want, but if you ain't got that power cord to back it up,
pretty much out. Yep.
Yeah.
Dan,
so that'd be what it's overlooked.
I was trying to think, and it's kind of funny. It's like, I can't imagine the stuff that I'm having other DJs aren't carrying, but we never know with the other person. So I will carry a couple extra mats that I have, and I keep them in the trailer. I know my venues, I know where I'm going to be, but I, for some reason, forgot that I'm going to be in the grass for something, and I'm going to have my evolves, right? Like, I don't want to put them on the grass, so I've got mats that are going to go underneath it. So that's one thing. I carry also a couple extra remote controls, both for my TV. That's on the front of my rolling booth, but also for like backups for my DMX lighting. So My up lights have the ability, obviously they're wireless, and I'm gonna, send the, use the Wi-Fi to send to my Chevet and whatever. But I also have the remote and extra batteries, so that if something doesn't go right with one, I at least can control it to get me by while I fix whatever might happen to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that would probably be the only thing I could think of, would be those extra remotes, um, that kind of stand out.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
that's
different.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Next question. Okay, guys, this was a question that was on one of the Facebook groups. They were wondering is what would you quote for a wedding or how would you quote a wedding where instead of you doing everything from the cocktail time, the dinner time, and the dance, where the couple wants you to do the cocktail, the dinner, the specialty dances where you're doing the emceeing and such, and then for the party time, the dance time, they basically have maybe a brother and they want them to DJ because they DJ, but they didn't want to bring all their gear. They just wanted to do that, and it could be a friend that's a really close friend, but they want them to do the dance, but they want you to do everything else. How would you quote that? Would you, maybe the first question should be, would you do it? And if you would, how would you quote that?
Who's starting?
I guess I'll start. You've been starting all night. So I feel like there's two different scenarios the way that you've discussed it. So the one scenario where we're doing everything and then we hand it over to somebody else, whether that's a band, whether that's another DJ, whatever that happens to be. And if they're using their own equipment,
it would all be your stuff. It would not be anybody else's.
So we're not switching over
right,
at all.
It's like somebody flying in typically, and I believe that's exactly the scenario, is that a brother or a cousin was flying in, and I think they might have brought their own controller because of that being, the computer and a controller, but otherwise it was plugging in and taking over. So that would be the way that for this scenario.
So I have a hard time with that scenario because I've worked in enough bars in the past where DJs that come in would blast the system and would blow the speakers and would create a scenario that is a problem. So I would have a hard time having somebody come in and play on my system. Obviously, I'm going to be there. Now, my first suggestion is, if you're there with your equipment, whether you're playing or not, you're on the clock and you should be paid accordingly for that time. If you're okay with somebody playing on your system, then that's a different scenario. But if you're there with it or your gear is there with it, then you should be paid accordingly for that time period, regardless of what you're doing. But me personally, I would probably pass on it, just because, again, that bad experience with, working with equipment that's been blown. Now, if I, maybe if I know of them, right, that might be a different scenario too.
Okay, devil's advocate, Dan. What if it's contracted and they hit you up afterwards?
Ooh.
Now you've changed the scenario of the contract.
Yeah, yeah. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm just
now we're up for renegotiation.
We're going to surcharge.
And get a tip. And we're gonna get a tip on
there
that
we
thing.
go. We're gonna throw everything in from tonight. I think in all reality, though, I would want to have a conversation that goes a little bit deeper. I would want to ask a lot of the questions, right? Like, is this a family friend that is, a bedroom DJ? Is this somebody who has played, in a bunch of bars? Is this somebody who does this, professionally? But again, they're coming from out of the area, so they're only going to be able, they're not going to handle all the extra nuances with mics and stuff like that. That would be a part of it. I feel that opens the door to maybe me going, okay, let's have this conversation, get the full picture. And if we're talking about another professional, but yeah, I'm with Johnny G. Same price, same setup, same time, right? Like, you're paying me for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you decide to use the cousin, so what? It's still my stuff there. It's still me that's there. So yeah.
Cubbie, what are your thoughts?
I would probably do the same thing. It actually happened 3 years ago, and cousin just happened to be there. It wasn't talked about any time before. He's like, "Hey, can I spin?" I'm like, "I'm gonna have to talk to the bride," but I was there the entire time. But knowing prior to the event, if I knew about it prior to the event, I would have to have some really good conversation with the guy. You know,
Right.
are you Serato or virtual DJ? Because I only use virtual DJ, and you're bringing your own laptop. Will it hook to my controller? Is it going to be compatible? You know, I'd have all these conversations so we wouldn't run into these problems at the night of. The one happened to me 2 years ago. I let him spend 30 minutes. Family loved it. It didn't hurt nothing. I was right there to monitor the sound, like Dave said. He tried to get hot, and I'm like reaching over him, going, "Okay, let's bring it down a little bit." Um, but I still got paid the same amount. But prior to the event, yeah, same price, same everything. Um, you're not getting a discount at all just because he's working it. But there'd be some deep conversation as to experience and stuff like that to make sure that it would work perfectly.
Yep. Yep. And
I would even I would even say some protections for your sound.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, to have some of those conversations about what ifs a little bit that could happen. But yeah, I'm right there, same price. There would be no difference in price, and because I've had a variation of that happen once, and they spun for half an hour, and they were like, "Yeah, I want to go party. I'm gonna go drink
Yeah.
now." It's like, but wait, you were supposed to spin for the rest of it. No, I'm good. I had a good time. I did my favorite set. Okay. It's like, well, it would have been a better set if you would have included some Huey Lewis. But hey, you know what? Not everybody can be really cool. I'm just saying. Okay, we got a couple more questions. We're going to try to get through a couple more here before we wrap up. So thank you guys for being here with us tonight in the chat. You guys have been putting some questions and such in there. House system, guys. Have you ever plugged into a house system? And if so, how did you make it work and such? Cubbie, go ahead. You start us off.
I am not a club DJ, so I've never plugged into a house system. As far as a wedding situation, no, I have not. I tell them I do appreciate the opportunity, but I know my gear and can troubleshoot if something was to happen. I know explicitly, and I don't want to take the chance on not knowing something from somebody else's gear. So thank you so much, but it's going to be the same. It's going to be my gear and the same price.
Dan.
Yes, I have plugged into a house system, but it's been for a remote area of the venue. So the main dance floor was still my stuff, but I was running a separate system to where or separate sound to where the dinner was, and they had a speaker and a cable already run for me. So it was just a matter of plugging that in. It's great if you can have something like that where it's not do or die detrimental type of situation. Like I said, for dinner, it was a great situation. Then it can work. I would say, always, always, always bring your own stuff, just to be prepared, in those scenarios. But it can be very appealing, especially if they have quality equipment. To go, man, that's a lot less that I have to bring with me. And keep in mind, right? Like I'm not knocking what you said, Cubby, as far as like I know my gear, but you're using Evie. If a pair of RCFs was sitting there, I think you know how to plug it in and turn it on, right? Like there's a lot of things that work the same that we could do if it's of quality. Um, Again, I would still have our stuff. I would still prefer to use our stuff, but I'm thinking of one venue in particular that's near me that there is no option. You will plug into their house system or you will not play there. And what they did was they put speakers throughout the whole venue. It's a nice even sound through everything. It's a great sound and it works beautifully from what I've been told. Um, in those scenarios, I would be for it. I've also heard of, some scary places where, they bought the cheap stuff off of, Temu or whatever. That's a different story.
Done it. I've done it myself. Done it numerous times. Sometimes it's been as Dan was describing. Sometimes it's actually been during the dance that we plugged in. What I have found from doing this over the years is, and I'm going to take a half step back here. When you have an electric panel, like I've got electric panels right here next to me, you've got your breakers in there, and in that is you've got a multiple wires coming in there, and there are two different sides when you're talking 220, that there's black wire and a red wire and a white wire, and the black and red are both basically carrying 110 volts to the outlets and things. Well, that means that there's wires coming in, and there are two different sides of electricity. They might be on this leg of the black side, we'll call it, and this, or they might be on the red side. what happens is that if my outlet is coming from one side of the box and the other outlet that those speakers are plugged into is coming from the other leg, there's times where those two legs will be out of sequence with each other, and you're going to have this weird buzz, a very annoying buzz, if you're running a solid wire connection to it. But if you go to wireless, using our little Sennheiser packs or something, you come out of your board, you do your booth out, and you got a transmitting pack, and then you got a receiving pack over there. You can plug that into the wall. You're not going to have the buzz problem. And that has been a huge save, a lifesaver for us. Because there have been a couple of times where they're like, yeah, here's an 1/8 inch, just plug, or the 1/4 inch jack, just plug it in your board. And we did. And we had buzz. Oh, well, let's convert it over to XLR because we could do XLR. There was the buzz because they were on two different legs of that box in there. So we went wireless, all gone. The other way to solve it was to unplug the laptop. If I took the power off the laptop and ran off its battery, we were fine. Why that was but that's been a common thing, and Ben and I've tried to talk about that numerous times, and he's like, well, I am not. Could be a lot of reasons. Like, yeah, I don't care. It just doesn't work right, and I think this is why. And now that's my workaround. So it can be done. But keep in mind is that the house system is probably looking for a line level in. Sometimes it's a mic level, but you got to understand and test it a little bit before you try to do anything, because you could blow up a lot of stuff. Not only some of your things, but you could blow up some of their stuff. So test it at low volumes and see what you can get out of it before you start doing the night.
Daniel had a follow up with that, which is, what's a fair price to ask? And I think that's one of the things where we got to really kind of get out of our own heads on this. What's a fair price? First off, the specific price I think is you're not going to get, but the question would be, like, if I'm using a house system, it's still me, it's still my time, it's still my day,
Yep.
It's still my expertise. You're not paying because I brought, two speakers and on a stick or whatever beside me. You're paying for everything else that I'm bringing to the table for that day. So you're going to get the same price as if I bring my equipment. Because here's again, if I'm doing a house system, I'm bringing my equipment.
It's going to be there. Yep.
It's going to be, it might stay in the trailer if it's that venue that I was talking about that requires it, but it's going to be there, because if something happens, it's coming out of the trailer and we're using it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I actually had one of those at the Varsity Theater down in Minneapolis. You go in, they've got the beautiful stage. I mean, it's a theater for production. Incredible sound system. And the guy's like, yeah, just throw me your two XLRs. And because they had a sound tech there, it's like, yeah, here you go. And he plugs it in, and it's like, ooh, this thing sounds awesome. But trailer was out there. Everything was in the trailer in case, just not knowing. And I charged my regular rate. So I'm going to get one more question in here quick, guys. So we're going to do that quick and then wrap it up. So if you have a situation where a venue is requiring you to be at a specific decibel level, how do you keep track of that, or how have you kept track of that in your past experience? Dan, you get to start this one.
Phone. I get the requirements of what they're looking for, find where they're at, do a test with them ahead of time, because again, where they're measuring it might not be where you're at your booth, but find where that limit is and what is that at your booth. I know a phone's not going to be ideal, but it should get you pretty darn close to it for that standpoint.
I'm with Dan. Have the phone app. Yeah, have the phone app and find out, like I said, what their levels are, if they are, and how far away can I be from that decibel level. If you're gonna walk right up to my speaker and hit it, like some venues like to do, like, you can't do that to me. Give me a distance a little farther off.
So we've used the phone, and the venue manager came up and was looking at our phone and such off and on throughout the night. And then I've had some that have wanted the handheld thing. So in the chat, there's a couple of links for a couple of things. The other one that we'll be utilizing, I believe, in September, is the bigger of the two, which is actually a 9-inch thing by 16 inches, but it's a big thing that's going to be over on the side because they want to be able to see it from the bar. And they want to be able to see it, and they want us to be able to see it, so everyone knows exactly when we're getting too loud. I don't remember what the number is that they want, but they said we can put it off to the side of the speakers about 15, 20 feet away, which, if I use a horn loaded, it probably could be, kept on a dance floor pretty well. The phone has worked the best personally, as you guys were saying, but when I get a situation where they're like, yeah, we want to be able to see it. Well, if they're not going to have one, that's going to be the next option. So not my preferred thing. That's for sure. Because it was a pain in the butt, because every time you start getting a little excited with your music, and then the next thing you know, it's like, 105, and they want us to be at 100. Yay. Oh, getting excited with the music again. Oh, look at 108. Grand, and got to go back down to 100. So, okay. Tomorrow night is Tuesday night. There's going to be a couple of shows that are going to be hitting. Ben is off tomorrow night. We're not going to be doing an interview show, so there's going to be a Monday night show and a Tuesday night show that are going to be running. And then, of course, the Chill Room, DJNTV.com/chill. They're there next, right after this show. And then tomorrow night at 10 o'clock Eastern, they'll be in there doing some things and talking a little bit. Might be a little thinner crowd tonight because Milwaukee's got a DJ convention going on, and Brian has got a bunch of folks there. So just go out and hang out and kind of have a little after time in the Chill Room, DJNTV.com/chill. And then we'll be back again. Let's see. Actually, you guys will maybe next week, and then I'll be back in 2 weeks. Yeah. All right, take us home, Dan. We got to roll.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. Thanks for the questions in the chat. We very much appreciate everybody giving some feedback and asking those questions, and hopefully we're able to answer something for you, and probably totally confused you, but that's the way it rolls. You have yourself a great one, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.